Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where I am going to go over 5 tips that I think every single Vayne player needs to know. Now, the reason I wanted to create this video is because I believe I have a rather unique perspective on the champion. Full disclosure, I have only played the champion myself up to the Platinum Elo, but I have recently gotten to Diamond 3 Elo playing support, and I have played thousands of games with different ADCs and a shit ton, a absolute metric shit ton with different Vayne players. So I'm going to provide those tips on what I see the successful Vayne players doing and the unsuccessful Vayne players doing. So I kind of seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of that. So it's going to be kind of different tips than what you're used to seeing, maybe from someone that is a Vayne main that I think a lot of people have already seen. So with that out of the way, if you guys have any questions for me, hit me up in the comments down below, as well as I really want to open this up during this video. If you have your own tips that you want to add for Vayne, I would love to hear your comments down below. Due to the format of this video being only 5 tips, I'm kind of limited with how much I can put here and add, so any kind of contribution that any big Vayne players out there can add would be a huge help. So without further ado, let's jump right into the tips. Alright, and for tip number 1, I want to talk about Vayne's strengths. A lot of the time, people have a very warped view of how Vayne plays out and when Vayne is at her peak in her strength. So what I want you guys to understand is that Vayne is a medium range ADC. So what that means is that she generally has a lot stronger consistent damage than a lot of her long range counterparts like Caitlyn or Ezreal. So you really want to take advantage of all ins. This is where you're going to shine. Obviously you can get poked out by certain ADCs that have longer range than you. So understanding that you are going to win a decent amount of all ins is a very big thing that you need to know with Vayne. Also, with Vayne is obviously you scale with terrain. So taking a fight here as opposed to being just right in the open is going to be a lot better, because of your condemn just lends so much strength for your champion. Now, a lot of players, when they play Vayne, they tend to really look for the 1v1 outplays when you are on this, similar to things like Lee Sin and Yasuo. So when you are looking to do all-ins with champions, just kind of go by a system, and it's kind of a +1 or a -1 system with different things happening during the encounters that you have. First up, if you are around terrain that you can very easily condemn on, that would be a +1. Another +1 would be having vision advantage, where you can easily have the perfect all-in the start of the all-in combo that you want. It would be another +1, and then obviously other +1s would be having your summoners and your all-in big cooldowns. And then another one would be big power spikes. For example, you have the Bilgewater Cutlass at a rather early part, and that is going to provide a lot of early game all-in pressure. Again, having a level disadvantage would be a -1. So just have a really good understanding of what you can possibly do with Vayne and try and put yourself in the best situations as possible. The last thing you want to do is be that Vayne that's on your team that is flash queuing into enemies in a very little terrained area and looking for a 1v1 outplay because you saw Gosu do it. Really try and play this champion in the smartest way you can possible, right? Really try and put yourself in the best situation for success. Do not try and force things. If you do not have to force things, just don't, because you'll be able to CS in lane. You can scale extremely well. You should not be forcing things unless you know that you can win. So do not force things, and always look for advantageous situations with terrain and with vision control. And that will wrap up tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 2. Now I want to talk about this because I think it is the number 1 sign that I see when I'm playing with the Vayne person and in the bot lane. When I'm supporting them, I instantly almost know when they are CSing and when they're doing trades if they're going to be a good Vayne that I should just build utility around and try and support and peel for, or if they're going to be an absolutely shit useless Vayne that I should not bother protecting and I should try and take I should just try and roam down other lanes and try and help them and get them to snowball. And this is how Vaynes take advantage of their dead time, and dead time occurs when they have just autoed and they have an animation between that. Obviously it's full build, so there isn't too much dead time on this champion just because there's a lot of attack speed right now, but the best ways that players take advantage of dead time is by moving. You want to be moving around so you're harder to hit because you are lower range. You really want to take advantage of the time where you are just have when you're doing your auto animations. It's just called orb walking as well, if you haven't heard that term before. Just really have a good understanding of what you need to do as Vayne. You are not a Nivea. You are not just at max range casting abilities, and it doesn't really matter how much you move. Try and be as unpredictable as possible. And again, the tip that I give with a lot of champions, just kind of a tip within a tip, a mini tip, would be keep your cursor really close to your champion so you have very sharp turns and you are very unpredictable. This is a lot better movement style than long, drawn out movements that they can. It's a little bit easier to see where you're going to go. Always try and be as unpredictable as possible. Keep your cursor tight and take advantage of your dead time. And that will wrap up tip number 2. Alright, and getting into tip number 3. You have amazing objective control with Vayne due to her insane amount of damage and just clearing potential. So what you want to look at is, say you pushed out the enemy bot laner, they both have to back, and you just have complete control of the lane. You have your minion wave pushed up. This is a great time to look for wards because you can be a little bit susceptible to ganks, and playing Vayne, a lot of the times people are going to focus your lane because it can be shut down or it can be snowballed quite ahead by other lanes. So what you want to look to do at the very least is to grab objectives like the scuttle. You do a great amount of damage because it provides true damage, and then also you have a very quick dragon due to your W. So always look to take advantage of your objective taking power and ping your jungler over and over again. If they don't understand that you have bot lane priority, that you should always be looking to take objectives. This is how you win games, ladies and gentlemen. This is how you do well, is having objective control. And whenever you're winning lane, a lot of people come to me and say, hey, I always win lane, I'm doing extremely well, but I cannot transfer that into victories for my team. The way you transfer your lead, say you get a couple solo kills and you're farming well, you want to just add that a little bit on top, which would be scuttle control, which would be dragon control, which would be warding, which would be rotating for other towers to spread the gold out to your allied champions. You want to be a communist. You want to spread all the power that you're accruing to the rest of your team to make it your team as strong as possible, because your team is only as strong as its weakest link. And that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and let's get into the different build paths with Vayne. Now, what's so great about her is she has a very high base amount of damage that she can pump out through her W, so she can go a little bit more defensive builds. I heavily recommend, if you're a newer player, to pick up things like Phantom Dancer over the what would you call it, the alternatives like Static Shiv or Rapid Fire Cannon, because this is such an extremely strong item right now. And if they have a lot of burst and say you're a little bit behind in the game, a great way to just kind of make the game a little bit more forgiving for yourself is by picking up the Phantom Dancer. You can also apply this to picking up items like Wit's End, right? Picking up items like QSS, picking up things like Guardian Angel that can really help secure your lead or prevent yourself from getting snowballed on. If you're one of those players that do extremely well and have extremely high level of micro skill, you can build extremely aggressive, and that will work with your play style. But I want you to stop right now in the middle of this video, press the pause button, and identify, hey, am I an extremely strong micro player for the elo that I'm in. If you are, I'd heavily recommend that you go extremely offensive in your builds, Berserker Greaves, and just go offensive, and try and carry the games as best as possible. But if maybe you're equal with a lot of other EDCs in your elo, or a little bit behind, try and build a little bit more forgiving. Obviously, Doran Shield, Taste of Blood, Phantom Dancer, even Ninja Tabbies if you're in a lane like Draven can help out quite a bit, or if you're against an extremely heavy AD team with a bunch of assassins. Build for what the game calls for. Maybe you're one of those players that you always do extremely well, but you're having that one game that it's maybe there's a 10-0 Rengar, right? You don't want to always be building the same thing over and over again. You do not want to fall into a cookie cutter build that you build every single game. If you're struggling in a certain game, try and build a little bit more defensive and make the game a little bit more forgiving for yourself. That will wrap with this tip. If you have any questions about itemization, hit me up down below and I will try my best to help you out. Alright, and jumping into the final tip, I just wanted to go over a really quick trading pattern that you can look to use when you're playing Vayne, that I see a lot of high elo Vayne players doing, but very rarely do I see a bunch of low elo Vayne players doing. So when the cannon minion is in lane, there is a high amount of focus on that minion. So when you see that up, and when you see your allied cannon minion very low HP, the enemy ADC is going to be heavily focusing on getting that CS, and they are not really going to be looking for trades too often. So what you want to do would just be I'm going to do this as slow as possible, would just be a auto into tumble, and then you can get them away from the cannon minion with your E, denying them that gold, and also proccing your silver bolts passive, so you can really just get a very strong trade, deny the enemy cannon minion, and just really set yourself up in a great spot. This can also work quite well if you have a little bit of a health lead and they're just CSing under tower. You could just do something like a Q auto Q into the E and just get a stun on them, deny them the farm, and just get a great trade. Again, if you guys have any kind of tips with trading patterns, I would love to hear comments down below, just because I'm a little limited with this format, as I said at the start of the video. This will wrap up my 5 tips. Thank you so much, guys. I can't believe I just passed over 7,000 subscribers. If you enjoyed this kind of content, let me know. Hit me up with that like button and that subscribe, and as always, take it easy.